Edward arrived at the hotel close to midnight. He had just left a conference in Boston, and all he wanted was a hot shower and sleep. The lobby was quiet, lit by soft lights, and carried a faint smell of disinfectant. He picked up the key to room 514 from Gavin, the front desk clerk, who barely looked up from his computer. Edward got in the elevator, went up to the 5th floor, and walked down a carpeted hallway until he reached his room. The silence up there was almost complete, except for the soft hum of the central ventilation. As he passed room 512, he noticed the door was sealed with a red tape across the frame, like the kind used for sanitary isolation. There was also a small wooden sign nailed to the door, handwritten, "Do not enter." He found it odd, but kept walking to his room, which was just across the hall. He went in, locked the door, and threw himself onto the bed without even taking off his shoes. Around 2:17 a.m., Edward woke up to a soft noise in the hallway. The sound of wheels, like a cleaning cart being pushed slowly. Still groggy, he got up and peeked through the peephole. He saw an older woman slowly passing in front of his door, pushing a metal cleaning cart. She stopped right in front of room 512, looked both ways, and pulled something from her pocket. A key. Edward kept watching. The woman inserted the key into the lock of 512, opened the door calmly, and entered, taking the cart with her. The red tape broke like it wasn't even there. The door closed slowly behind her. He waited a few seconds, thinking maybe he was dreaming, but the hallway remained empty and quiet. It made no sense. Why would anyone enter a sealed room in the middle of the night? The next morning, Edward woke up late, had breakfast, and went down to the front desk. He casually mentioned to Gavin what he'd seen the night before. "I think I saw a cleaning lady go into 512 during the night. Probably a mistake, right?" Gavin frowned. "Cleaning lady? At night? Impossible. 512's been sealed off since last month. Plumbing issues. No one's supposed to go in there." Edward gave a nervous laugh, trying to play it cool. But deep down, something was starting to bother him. The next night, Edward decided to clear things up once and for all. He taped his phone to the peephole, set to start recording at 2 a.m. When he woke up around 6, he checked the footage. There she was. The same woman, the same cleaning cart. She stopped in front of 512, pulled out the key, and calmly entered the sealed room. No ghosts, no tricks, this was real. What didn't make sense was, why would someone from the staff be using a restricted room in the middle of the night? Edward showed the video to Gavin. "This makes no sense. There's no one on duty during that shift, and no one's authorized to access that room." Gavin looked genuinely confused. Edward asked to speak to the manager, but Gavin brushed him off. "She's not in the hotel right now. Try again later." That reaction set off a red flag. Edward realized no one wanted to talk about it. Instead of waiting, Edward went back to the 5th floor alone. He stopped again in front of 512. This time, he noticed a barely visible crack on the side of the doorframe, like it had been forced and clumsily patched up. Pressing his ear to the door, he heard muffled sounds inside. Footsteps, voices, some kind of movement. But seconds later, everything went silent. He quickly stepped back as someone came down the hall. Later, Edward returned to the lobby. This time, he demanded to speak to the manager. Sonia showed up a few minutes later, polite and formal. He told her everything: the video, the movement in the sealed room, the sounds he'd heard. She listened quietly, then responded curtly. "Room 512 is out of service for technical reasons. No one goes in there. And if you keep recording guests or staff, we'll have to take action." Her tone wasn't concern. It was a threat. That night, Edward couldn't relax. He turned on the TV but left the volume low. Around 2:30, he heard footsteps in the hallway again. He peeked through the door crack and saw something unexpected. It wasn't the cleaning lady. It was Sonia. She was standing in front of 512, whispering to someone on the other side of the door. Then she passed something through the gap. It looked like money, and walked off without noticing she was being watched. Everything changed after that. Edward's room phone rang at 4 a.m., but when he answered, there was only silence. When he tried to go down for breakfast, his room key card didn't work. He had to ask for help at the front desk. Gavin simply said, "System glitch, happens sometimes." But there was something in his eyes. It didn't look like surprise. It looked like a warning. Edward decided to check out that same day, but something kept nagging at him. Before leaving, he went up to the 5th floor one last time. The hallway was empty. He walked to 512 and tried the doorknob, locked as expected. But as he turned to leave, he noticed the supply closet at the end of the hall was slightly open. It was where staff kept cleaning supplies. He decided to take a look. Inside, he found more than mops and buckets. There was a cleaning cart identical to the one the woman used, its base stained with dried, dark patches. On one shelf sat a cardboard box with torn-off labels and 512 written in marker. Inside were scorched documents, dirty clothes, and what looked like torn photos of former guests. One photo was still intact. It showed a woman sitting on a bed in room 514, his room. As he stepped out of the closet, he ran straight into Alex, the security guard. He didn't say a word, just locked the door behind Edward with a key. "That area's for staff only," he said. "Go back to your room." There was no room for discussion. Edward went down, but in that moment, he knew something was deeply wrong. And worse, he knew too much. Packing his things and leaving felt urgent, but his key no longer worked. Edward headed to the lobby, but it was empty. Gavin was gone from the front desk. The lights were dimmer than usual. He called out, but no one answered. He walked over to the automatic front door, but it wouldn't open. Locked. He pulled, pushed, until he noticed a lock on the inside, chaining the door to the floor. Sealed from within. The hotel was locked down. He heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Sonia and Alex coming from the back hallway. Neither said a word. She held a clipboard. He had a key. "You shouldn't have seen what was in the closet," Sonia said calmly. "And you definitely shouldn't have recorded anyone." Edward tried to speak, but Alex shoved him and told him to take the elevator back up. He stepped in and hit the button to go up, but the cabin didn't move. The lights flickered and went out for a few seconds. When they came back, Edward was locked inside. He tried the intercom, no signal. Hit the alarm, nothing. Pulled out his phone, no reception, no internet. Everything was cut off. Then he saw something taped to the wall. A printed note stuck with masking tape. Handwritten, "Keep your mouth shut, man." The elevator finally moved, but instead of going to the restaurant, it stopped on the 5th floor. The doors opened slowly, revealing the same carpeted hallway. All the lights were off, except one, room 512. The door was now slightly ajar. Edward stepped out cautiously, looking both ways. No one. The air was warmer, hazy. The cleaning cart was still parked in front of the room. Empty. He walked closer, pushed the door open with his fingers. The room was dark. Only the bathroom light on. No bed, no furniture. Just black garbage bags on the floor and a wooden chair in the corner, with cuffs bolted to the arms. There was also an old video camera, one of those that recorded to tape, pointed at the wall, like someone had been filming there for hours. On the floor, a security guard uniform folded neatly. Before he could leave, someone ran past the doorway behind him. Edward jumped and gave chase, but the hallway was empty. Nothing, just silence. He returned to room 512, which remained just as he'd left it. Bathroom light still on. Cleaning cart still there. Camera still on its tripod. On the chair sat his wallet, the one he swore he'd left in his suitcase in room 514. He approached slowly, unsure what to expect. On the floor, a folded piece of paper with his name written in black ink. Edward picked it up and unfolded it. A single phrase filled the center of the page: "You're done." At that moment, the lights went out. Darkness. The door behind him slammed shut. He heard the lock click. He was trapped. Footsteps echoed away in the hallway. Total silence. Then he turned and saw the camera's red LEDs start blinking. It began recording. The flash blinded him. Suddenly, someone grabbed him hard from behind and strapped him to the chair. He screamed in panic. They gagged him, pulled a black bag over his head. Terrified, he squirmed violently in the chair, trying to break free. And then, he felt something pierce into his body. Blinding pain, and everything went black.